"You've outlived your usefulness," Dylan said with a smug grin, pushing a crisp stack of termination papers across the dark mahogany desk. "Time to make space for real progress." I lifted the papers calmly, masking my emotions behind the practiced neutrality I'd perfected over 15 years in corporate leadership. My name is Vanessa King, and at 44, I dedicated nearly a third of my life to developing the proprietary logistics software that powered Kingline Ventures, our family's Pittsburgh-based logistics empire. Across from me sat my younger brother Dylan, newly appointed managing director, a title he'd worn for less than a week. His self-satisfied smirk clashed with the familiar family photos that adorn the office walls. Smiling faces, holidays, a legacy of loyalty that now felt hollow. This office had once been our father's. Edward King, a man who built Kingline, from a modest two-truck operation into a regional logistics powerhouse. I wasn't just an IT manager. I was the architect of the software system that kept Kingline's global operations running like clockwork. My framework tracked shipments across continents, automated billing, and streamlined vendor management. And now, I was being discarded like outdated machinery. "Is this really how you're choosing to begin your leadership?" I asked, tapping the papers into a neat stack. "Less than a week in charge and you're already gutting the foundation?" Dylan reclined in our father's old chair, the leather still bearing the weight of Edward's leadership. "The board agrees. We need modernization. Vortex Solutions will replace your system with a more scalable, cloud-integrated infrastructure. Machine learning, AI-driven analytics, the works." He said, homemade, like I'd been crafting it in a garage, not engineering a custom logistics system that had saved the company millions. I could have corrected him. I didn't. That had always been my mistake, assuming that my work would speak for itself. "You'll receive 2 weeks of severance," he added, tightening his designer tie. "It will deactivate your credentials by tomorrow evening. HR has everything prepared." I stood, noting how Dylan was already engrossed in his computer, moving on. He didn't see the slight smile that flickered on my lips, not one of peace, but realization. He had no idea what I actually did, and that ignorance would cost him. Growing up as the privileged children of the King family had its perks and its pressures. Our father was a commanding figure, and while Dylan thrived in sports and social events, I was the quiet one, drawn to systems and logic. At 12, I got my first computer. By 16, I was writing inventory software. After college, my father welcomed me into the business, saying, "One day, the world will run on information, not steel. You'll keep us ahead of that curve." My breakthrough came during a system failure. A major client onboarding was at risk, and the third-party software we relied on collapsed. I worked 72 sleepless hours, wrote a patch, and salvaged the deal. My patch outperformed the original system, and Dad gave me full rein to build a proprietary solution. "Build something just for us," he said. I did. Over the next 10 years, I created a system that became our competitive edge. It wasn't just software, it was Kingline's nervous system. Yet as our success grew, so did the perception that my work was legacy. Dylan, fresh from business school, began pushing for replacements, flashy partnerships, buzzwords, and cloud everything. Dad had always balanced us. "He sees the future," he would say, "but you built our present. Both matter." When Dad retired abruptly due to health issues, the board chose Dylan to lead. It didn't surprise me, but the swiftness of my removal did. The termination papers represented more than a job loss. They were a rejection of my identity, of the invisible labor holding the company together. I packed my office that afternoon, folding 15 years of memories into a cardboard box, a potted plant, some photos, conference lanyards. Jennifer from HR hovered, awkward and apologetic. "Everyone in IT is stunned," she whispered. "It's just business," I said, though we both knew it wasn't. It was personal. The end of a long sibling rivalry. As I prepared to leave, I glanced at my screen one last time. The KISS dashboard, Kingline Integrated Software System, was clean, functional, and deceptively simple. Behind it was a labyrinth of custom logic, security protocols, and undocumented intricacies, not due to negligence, but because systems evolve faster than documentation can keep up. My knowledge lived in my head, not in manuals. Master override password. "It's in the documentation," I said, smiling. Dylan had access now, but not the keys to the kingdom. As I passed the conference room, I saw Dylan surrounded by Vortex consultants. A slide on their presentation read, "Seamless migration from legacy systems." I almost laughed. There was nothing seamless about KISS. It was secure, complex, and unforgiving to outsiders. Integration without understanding would be a disaster. And I didn't need to lift a finger. 3 days passed in a strange calm. I slept in, ran by the river, ate breakfast like a human being. On the third morning, my phone buzzed. "Vanessa," it was. "Caitlin Dow, head of client services. Are you watching the Westbridge pitch? Dylan's doing it live." I pulled up the internal live stream. Dylan was presenting to Westbridge Manufacturing, a $15 million prospect. He gestured at the KISS dashboard, boasting about 99.8% delivery accuracy. Then the screen behind him glitched. Error messages filled the display. The system froze. "Just a minor hiccup," Dylan said, tapping his tablet. Then came the fatal red message. "Database integrity compromised. System lockdown initiated." I knew what had happened. Years ago, I'd implemented a self-protection protocol to prevent data corruption. It required a specific undocumented recovery sequence. Only I knew it. As Dylan flailed, IT systems crashed company-wide. Warehouses halted, trucks idled, billing froze. The outage was costing $50,000 an hour. My phone lit up with messages from operations managers, IT staff, and finally, Dylan. I ignored them. Then my father called. "Vanessa," he said, voice weary, "the system's down. Dylan says it collapsed." "It's not a collapse," I replied. "It's doing exactly what it's supposed to, protecting itself." "Can you fix it?" I hesitated. "I don't work for Kingline anymore. There are 300 employees, depending on that system." He was right, but the hurt was still raw. Dylan should have thought of that before he fired me. That morning, I had an interview with Caravel Logistics, a rival firm. Their CTO had pursued me for years. The meeting went well. Smart questions, real respect. They handed me an offer on the spot. Double my previous salary, equity, CTO title. Meanwhile, Kingline was in chaos. The board was panicking. Dylan was blaming me publicly for sabotage. Caitlin messaged, "Westbridge walked. Emergency board meeting happening now. He's blaming you." I finally called Dylan. "You sabotaged us," he barked. "I didn't sabotage anything. Your consultants triggered a security protocol they didn't understand." "Fix it." "I'm not your employee." He paused. "What do you want?" "Come back. Fine. You can have your job." I laughed. "After everything? No. I want recognition. I want equal standing." He balked. "The board won't." "Then rebuild the system from scratch. Good luck." That night, Dylan showed up at my apartment, disheveled, desperate. "You win," he said. "They're talking about removing me. I was wrong. I need you." I handed him Caravel's offer. Jennifer asked for "This is what I'm worth." He stared at it, stunned. "They're just using you to steal our tech." "No, they value me, something Kingline never did." "What do you want?" "A seat on the board. CTO title, equal compensation, full autonomy." "You can't be serious." "Then rebuild it yourself." The next morning, I walked into Kingline, not as a technician, but as an executive. The boardroom fell silent as I sat between my father and the longest-serving board member. Dylan stood, pale and exhausted. "Ms. King has agreed to restore our systems," he said. I addressed the board. "This failure wasn't sabotage. It was a security protocol I created to protect the company. The system isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do." I projected the master interface. Behind the simple dashboard was a web of health checks, redundancies, and logic flows no off-the-shelf product could replicate. They finally understood what I had built. With my new title and authority, I restored the system in under an hour, this time training the IT team step by step. The system sprang back to life. Warehouses resumed, shipments moved, the crisis subsided. Over the next week, the company transformed. My office moved to the executive floor. My department was restructured under my leadership. Vortex's scope was redefined to support, not replace, our systems. Dylan and I maintained a formal distance. Our relationship a casualty of ambition. But the biggest change came from Dad. I always thought Dylan would lead because he reminded me of myself. He said during coffee, "But you're the one who built the future? I should have seen that sooner." I smiled. I didn't need his approval anymore, but it felt good. My new business cards arrived that Friday. Vanessa, King Chief Technology Officer Board Member. Looking at them, I felt something I hadn't in years. Validation. I hadn't sabotaged anything. I'd simply left a void so vast it revealed the weight of what I'd built. And now, finally, everyone could see it.